The title of my talk is, We Are All Pilgrims, Lost and Found Along the Way. And if a pilgrim is a person on a journey to a holy place, I'm hoping I'm headed to heaven, and I think you want to join me. So we're all headed that way. But in our journey of life, there are times when we get lost. And there are times when something or someone finds us and helps us move forward in life. And I had many of those experiences on my Camino that I'd like to share with you. I have to begin with my people. These are my people. So my sweetheart of 47 years, we've had 5 children and 6 adorable grandchildren. The little lamb on my lap is Clara, and her miraculous story, she's a 2-time cancer survivor. Her miraculous story is in a chapter of mine called Misericordia. And we have a son who is not pictured here, and his story is in a chapter called Ad Majorem Dei Gloriam, which is Latin for all for the greater glory of God. And it's the chapter of the day I walked into the Camino and dedicated my Camino. And people ask me, well, isn't this a common question? I was like, why'd you walk the Camino? You meet people all along the way and they ask you that question. I have to take them to a time in 2010. I was struggling with the loss of our 28-year-old son to a surprise heart attack. At that very time, my prayer time dried up. And I had no connection. It's a normal thing. It's not a bad thing. It's just a normal thing. It just came at that time. And for 2 years, I didn't have any connection in my prayer time. That's a critical part of my being. And I had a spiritual director offer me some wonderful advice. He said, just keep pushing. Pray until something happens. Just keep pushing. So for 2 years I pushed until March 23rd, 2012. I'm just at my 10-year anniversary. I had an intimate moment in prayer time. And I had a vision of a clay trail skirted with red poppies and tall barley grasses and acres and acres of what I didn't know at the time were canola fields. I don't see them out here, but it was spectacular. It was in the springtime, and there were snow-capped mountain peaks in the background. It was glorious. And add to that, I saw an image of me on the trail, happy, outrageously happy. And I went through a little mind search like, where is this? What is this place? Until I had a flashback to the movie, The Way, and I made the connection to the scenes in that movie and what I was experiencing, which led me to believe that I was really being called to walk the trail, immediately followed by a very intense argument like, how am I going to do this, Lord? You know, I was carrying 40 more pounds. I had never walked. I didn't speak Spanish. How would I get off work? I went through this whole litany of hows, wore myself out with that, and found my new advice in life: shut up and listen. And in a moment of silence, I had 2 words, and it was just, have faith. And that's superpowered me through not one, but all 3 Caminos. And in every tough moment, I just kind of suck it up and have faith. And that was what happened. And people ask, like, well, who did you walk with? Did you get that question? Who did you walk with? In my case, I walked alone because I knew I had him, and I just trusted good things would happen. And turned out I connected with a South African Anglican bishop. His name is Bishop Eric Pike, and his wife, and a widow lady who took me under their wing, and I got to walk with them. I didn't realize who I would be connected to because he did ministry with Bishop Desmond Tutu, and his personal friend, whom he marched against apartheid with, was Nelson Mandela. It was his personal friend, and he had much of the character of Nelson. And there would be days we'd walk, we agreed to have silence in the morning, and then he would saunter up later in the day. He was 6'5" and I ain't. So he'd saunter up to me and says, "Willie, have you ever considered the imagery in John's Gospel?" No. One, Judas left Jesus and went into the dark, and Nicodemus came in from the night to see Jesus. You see the parallel in the imagery of that? No, and then we would have these delicious conversations about life and spiritual life. Well, that was the company that I had. What I'd like you to see is some of what I saw. This is why I wrote the book. I have a video here. Here.
Salvation promised to me. I long for
preface before I start to share 3 little snapshots of my experience on the Camino. And I write the book in a triad, 3 perspectives. One is the Camino, and this really came out of people asking, like, what do you see there? Like, what is it like? So they want to know about the Camino, more of its geography and some of the interesting history. They want to know, like, well, what did you get out of it, which I describe as my Camino. What kind of spiritual insight, what came to me in that. And then there are a group of people that will say, maybe not directly, but, well, that's nice for you, Willie, but what's in it for me? If I were to read your book, what's in it for me? And I try to offer some advice that I call our Camino, just something that would help you along your journey. That's a third part of it. And to begin this, I have to do just a refresher. Many of you have heard, excuse me, many of you have heard that there are 3 stages of Camino. It's physical. That trip up the Pyrenees is physical. And I like to believe that there's actually a step in front of that, and it's the moment the Camino's born in you. When I had that moment that said, have faith, I was already on the Camino. The day that you knew you were going, that was when your Camino started. And then there's the physical part of it. There's a period of time that's considered emotional. It's generally right about at the Meseta. And then there's a stage that would be spiritual, and that's when you're getting into Galicia and close to that. So the first story is kind of a faith story that I love this word. It's not mine. It was coined by a lady named Lorraine Nunley. It's called a Godcidence. And what had happened on this day was, so I'll do about the Camino, my Camino, our Camino as a pattern. So this is somewhere just west of Belorado. The Meseta has already started. And after enduring all of the strain of it, things tend to get emotional. I don't know if that's true for you, but little things become sentimental. I walk by a cafe and those are apples, and my grandson loves apples, and I remember my grandson. I was like, what am I getting all teared up over an apple for? But the things became emotional. Things became sentimental to me. And on this particular day, there was a steep rise. It was kind of a camel hump. There were 2. It was about a 325-foot rise, then a short down and another rise. And there was a nice little rest area there. And the sun was hot. You know what it's like when the sun's just baking you off the backside. So I stopped up there, kicked off my boots, I'm resting. And this 2 Canadian couples come up. And we visit for a while, and they have all the same questions. You know the questions. Like, where are you from? Chicago. Why are you walking the Camino? And something about where did you start? How has it been? You know, we had that kind of wonderful conversation. And at that point, I said, well, okay, I'm going to hit the trail, Buen Camino. Grabbed my pack, and off I went. And it's another 325-foot drop, which is reasonable on the Camino. And it was rather steep. Well, I dropped the pole and bent down to pick it up, and I didn't zip up the top of my pack. All my gear is rolling downhill, and I'm trying to gather everything up and think I have it all. And I get down to the bottom, and I realize, oh, I don't have my water bottle. And I had a short stay at another shrine in Medjugorje, Croatia, where it's believed the Blessed Mother is appearing. So I went there as a pilgrimage and had some time there and found a water bottle that fit perfectly in my pouch. And because I had it at all these shrines, I became sentimental to the thing. I get down to the bottom and go, I don't have my water bottle. How am I going to do without my water bottle? I love my water bottle. Up I climb all 325, hit the hump, come all the way back up to the rest area. Nothing. I searched the ravines. Nothing. I got to the top of that hill, and I had this kind of like moment where I said, Willie, it's a stupid water bottle. What are you getting so upset over a water bottle? And I realized, I'm really not here for a water bottle. I'm here to be with you, Lord. And I recognized that I had too much of an attraction to material things in my life. And I had a free moment that said, I'm not going to let that control me anymore. I see what I have as a habit. I'm trying to separate myself from material things. And I'm walking down that trail feeling very free. All the way back down, it intersects and the trail levels off, and it goes off for a long distance until I realized this is similar to where I was at. But when I got there, I realized I don't have a water bottle. And after a short time, I recognized my tongue was thickening. And I was starting to see little white speckles, and my skin got prickly. My tongue felt like it was getting glued to the inside of my mouth. I was dehydrating. And I was struggling with that, and I had this little moment. I said, well, Lord, I didn't want a water bottle, but I need some water. If you could find some way to help me. Now, this has been true of all of my Caminos, and maybe you'll attest to this. I have never, capital N, all caps, never seen a car driving on the Camino. Never. And on this, shortly after that little moment, I put my head down so I wouldn't obsess with no one in front of me and miles to the town, no one behind me. I catch sight of a gray minivan on this little 5-foot trail with a cloud of Camino dust running behind it, and he comes roaring up alongside of me. The window drops and holds out a nice cold bottle of water. I took it in amazement. It's like, this doesn't happen, is this really happening? I just had this little prayer, and here comes the water bottle. So, I can't say much to him, but the stubbly-faced Spaniard just grinned at me and drove off. No one else was around, and I continued and got within a couple K in front of my albergue for the day, and I'm resting there before the final push, and up comes the Canadian couple. They walk up, and I can see the gentleman. He's on a mission. He sees me, and he's walking straight to me, and he says, I see you left your water bottle back there. And something told me you would really like to have it back. I refilled it, and I'd like to bring it to you.
Oh, brother.
That, my friend, is what I call a Godcidence. A coincidence that God was involved in. And that taught me something about not only having faith there, but the faith He wishes to demonstrate to me. The ending to that story is, I'm blabbering with, oh, you don't know, this was really a special water bottle. I had this for all kinds of places, and it fits good. He just kind of smiled and pulled out his canteen. He says, we drink as brothers. He held out his canteen, we clunked water bottles, and had our goodbyes. That was my lesson on faith. I'd like to offer, this is some of what the definition is. It's a circumstance that looks like a coincidence, but it's obviously a God thing. But I particularly enjoyed the second one. Sometimes I just look up, smile, and say, I know that was you, God. Now I want to take you on an idea an experience I had, that I learned something about hope in this story. And it happens that I woke up in the morning, Rabinal del Camino, okay? It's right before you get to Cruz de Ferro. And I stayed at the little British albergue there, run by the Brits. Oh my gosh, they're so wonderful. Really pilgrim-centered. And they wake up in the morning and a surprise snowfall had occurred there. This is late April, so everything was covered in a couple inches of snow, but that was not as alarming, because it almost like walking in a snow globe. It was beautiful. But what sobered me up is when I took a look at the trail from there, that's the center of where we were headed to Cruz de Ferro, and there was a blizzard going on there. So, of course, the year that I walked, it was the coldest, wettest spring in 70 years. So that was true of this day. The blizzard had come through and made it up to Cruz de Ferro, and I had invited friends. I said, if you'd like me to say a prayer for you, give me a one word that would be your burden prayer. I'm not going to carry 80 rocks with me, but I'll carry your word and one burden for all of us. So they all gave me a word, and I said, I'm going to spend some time here, pray each person's name and their burden. They were heartbreaking things. Cancer, divorce, illnesses that they had. There was heartbreaking things. I carried and prayed the whole way. And I got up there, and the bishop, I call him the good bishop, he comes up and in his gentle way he puts his hand and goes, Willie, we think you're going to want to have some time here. We've been here before. We're going to leave before the blizzard closes the road. I appreciate your laughter, but I was so moved by being here. Those words went right over my head. It never even caught my attention. So I nestled down there, spent probably 45 minutes, and all of a sudden the words, blizzard, close the road. Now it was time for me to try and make it down, but because of the snow, you remember the descent out of Cruz de Ferro? Oh my, it's a 3,000-foot descent, and there are large slabs of slate. The arrows get covered in snow. I get lost easy, so there was all of that. And by the time extra precaution, there's stretches of it that have like a 24-degree slope. It's really treacherous at part. So I make it down there, and I'm headed to Molina Seca, which has at the end of town a place with an outrageous reputation, Santa Marina. And it's the second to the last place on the outside of town. And when I got there, the good bishop's right in front of me with his wife, gets the last two beds. And when I walk up, you know those two dreaded words? Es completa! There was no room. So at that point, I wasn't going to try and make it 1 or 2K back into town to try and find a place. The next place was 300 yards down. It was a small place that I could stay instead of continue on to Pamparada. So I go there. It was a college frat house. We were all 20-something-year-olds, very crowded, darkly painted. The bunks were like this. The shower was 30 inches by 30 inches, and it was almost cool water. So I had my shower, and I said, I wanted to get a meal, and they said, no, go back. So I go back to the place that had turned me down for a bed, thinking I'd get a meal. And I was met with much of the same story. How that played out taught me a lesson about kindness and how to see hope in something that seems hopeless. And you'll find it entertaining. It's meant to be entertaining, but it really illustrates my exact experience. That's not it.
Let me help you out.
Thank you.
I walked into the albergue that happened to be managed by 2 men and a woman, and I inquired about a dinner ticket for the night, but his answer...
No más. No más. Señor, por favor, no más. No.
And then
Señor, no.
he rattles off a string of Spanish telling me there are no room for guests, it's all done for the night. And then he points me to a place 2 miles down the road where a restaurant would be. After that walk, I didn't have it in me. I was spent. Everything in my lower back was cash. There was a stabbing pain between my shoulder blades. My feet throbbed. My legs were sore. My quads felt like warm jello from bracing myself going down that hill. I looked over to the little lounge that was there, and I thought, I write my blog each night. It takes me about an hour. Maybe if I sat there for a while, I'd get rejuvenated. So I spent a little time working on my blog as I did each night. And in about an hour, it was done. But everything had stiffened. I just don't move, you know. When you crest over 60, things don't move around as easy. You need the oil can. So I was so stiff, so sore, and I was hungry. The lunch I had 6 hours earlier had turned into a roaring growl. I was so hungry, especially from the exertion. And I didn't know what I was going to do at that moment. To add to it, right at that same time, dark, rolling storm clouds came. It got dark outside. And in short order, a robust, biting rainstorm came. That rain came down so hard, it firecrackered off the sidewalk. It was very much like the rainstorm we had here. Do you remember 2 Sundays ago, the rain we had here? Very much like that. I looked at the situation and I went, I can't do it. I can't do it. The storm outside, and in contrast to that, inside in a lovely dining hall, 2 male managers were setting the tables. They were rolling out white tablecloths, putting out wine glasses, and bowls for warm soup, baskets for warm bread, baskets for warm bread. And I watched it all so inviting. It felt so appealing, but there was no room in the inn for D-Dub. I knew it wasn't for me. And I thought, well, what was I going to do? It was kind of a hopeless situation. And I thought, well, maybe if I were to approach one of the men and say, sell me a bowl of soup, I'll eat it on the patio under the canopy. So I went up to the one and said, Señor, ¿es posible?
No, señor, es completo.
No hope there, no hope there. I stood there and watched out the window as the storm went on and on and on. I said, come on, DW, a man up here, get some courage, ask him, you can't do that 2 miles. The other manager was there. I said, Señor, ¿es posible?
No, no es posible.
And he points me back to that walk. These guys were hopeless. The situation was hopeless. I was hopelessly tired, hopelessly hungry. And quite honestly, I had sent out quite a few prayers of hope and prayer that I didn't think I was listening to, until a little glimmer of hope occurred in the sound of a sweet lady's voice.
Señor, ¿cuántas personas?
Solamente uno, only one.
Tenemos uno más.
Uno más.
Sí,
¿Qué es
sí,
eso?
sí.
No, es
It was as if they were prize fighters. And they had heard the bell and said, okay, off to your corners. The 2 men huddled over what I guess was some kind of strategy to use against this woman. But it was right here, that God showed me a different way to look at hope. It happened in a little action where this lady gave a quick glance to those men, took a glance and a wink at me, and raised one finger as if to say, just wait. Just wait.
Por el amor de Dios, ayúdame.
So I've been back there, and just to be clear, there was nothing personal against me. What we found out is they had set the tables for 32, and all the wine glass, the tablecloths, everything was set, but to fit another person meant they had to remove all of it, move the tablecloths, and try and resituate it, and it meant delaying the dinner for all of those that were waiting. But since that time, first of all, it was so worth it because it's all home cooking. The soup was melt your knees. It was just absolutely fabulous meal. And I had to go to this lady and thank her. And in my insanely poor Spanish, I said that you were Christ for me today, and I'm so grateful for what you had done. And I kept saying, Dios te bendiga, that my gratitude for her. Found out her name is Christina, and when this was created, I went back and refreshed her memory. See. And I said, there's a movie of you. I must see this movie. So I found this clip on our parish YouTube and showed it to her, and it just brought great delight to her. And when I came back a third time, the husbands, well, we're all good friends. We're like family now. But so here, what's the point? I have done kind things in my life, and I want to think you would say you have done kind things. I have never experienced someone who insisted kindness be shared for me. To become that uncomfortable just to make sure someone else can experience kindness. And that's what she did for me. And in being outrageously kind, it taught me something about how to find hope and how to extend hope. So times when people are really desperate for it. This man, John Green, is known for a good long time. And he's come up with this expression. It says, "May dear Lord make us uncomfortable. Because if I do only the things that are comfortable, what do I need God for? What do I need anything for, because I'm living in my comfort zone. If I wanted to be better at kindness, I have to become a little more uncomfortable in how I show it," which was a good lesson, and Christina demonstrated that for me. Now I want to share with you a third story. This is so it's kind of a love Camino, faith Camino, a hope Camino, a love Camino, and I'm equating forgiveness equals love. And in this, I was in so here's the Camino part of it. I'm in Otebrero, up in the mountains. Glorious, isn't it? About 5,100 feet. And you have this panorama mountain and valley below you. It's just breathtaking. There's also a little chapel there called Santa Maria Real. And on the side, there is encasing glass, the chalice, and a paten, a small silver dish, that the priest uses in the consecration of the Mass. And as the story goes, there was a hermit somewhere back in the 12th century who fought his way through the mountain pass, through the snow, to attend Mass. And when he got there, there was a visiting monk who was going to say the Mass, but he was the only one there. And as the story is told, when he got there, the monk chided him. "What are you doing here? You could have been killed. You could have fallen down the mountain, lost in the snow. No one would have known you would have died there." And local history captures this expression. "I'm here for Jesus." And then with that, he surrendered and said, "Well, okay, I'll have the Mass just for you." And while at the consecration, the holiest part of the Mass, where the priest elevates the host, it physically became human skin and folded over his knuckles. And in amazement, he sets it on the paten. He elevates the chalice. It physically became human blood, what we call a Eucharistic miracle. Those two vessels were on display there, and I had some beautiful, wonderful extended prayer time there. So I was kind of riding high, not even better than the next morning, because they have a thing called floating mountains. Those that have ever been there, early in the morning, the Cloud Club cover line, where you kind of you pull out things out of your past and you're looking at them again, sorting through life. It's a little bit like, for me, it's like dumping over the junk drawer in the house, and I don't need this, and oh yeah, keep this, keep that. Now, that's what was going on in my head. And while I was going there, I had these old thoughts of things like a story, a time when someone really offended me, did something really hurtful to me, said something very painful. I was reliving all of those old memories, times people took my ideas and stole them and pretended they were theirs. Times people had treated me unfairly. One thought came and then another, and each one just kept darkening my soul. It made me so sad, and I relived the hurt of those. And while I was doing that, I came to a few hours of it, and I had kind of this moment. I said, "Lord, why are you making me look at all these evil things?" And I realized, that is not God's work. That's an evil one, inviting me to that. And as soon as I thought that, I realized it was my early pride that invited it, and I went full game into it. I was allowing myself to entertain all those old hurts, things that I had in the past. And when I did that, that gave me kind of a sense of purpose. And I went, so it's a game. And it was Satan's game. It's kind of like Jeopardy on TV. And I would think, now I'm making fun of it, and I'm playing with this, that I'll take people who have offended me for 200. I'll take people who have been unkind to me for 400. And I was playing Satan's game. Now I'm laughing at it, and I realize that is how evil kind of grows in us. Whether you're in there's a Satan or not, that's how unhealthy, unhappy things grow. They kind of slither into our thinking, and then we choose to entertain them, and we let them grow. And before you know it, it changes our whole mood and our whole disposition. That's what happened there. And I wanted to illustrate that in another skit done with some other folks at our church, and a gentleman who played Satan. And we have a game show that we created to illustrate that. But I'm asking you to pay attention to the character that plays Satan and the pleasure that he demonstrates when we buy into evil, negative thoughts.
So, ladies, gentlemen, friends, I'd like to invite you to a reenactment done by some of our St. John Newman performers in a story I've written called Satan Jeopardy!
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to play Satan Jeopardy, the game show that games you. Let's meet our contestants. Beth is a 17-year-old from Geneva, Illinois, who's sick of her parents preaching on her Facebook page, just broke up with her boyfriend, and thinks her best friend is selfish and doesn't care. Carol is a semi-retired small business owner from St. Charles, Illinois. She doesn't trust anyone else to run her business, is fed up with lazy employees, and wonders whether she should just sell it and get out. David is an underemployed pencil pusher from Wayne, Illinois. He still hasn't found the right job, hates watching his successful friends from the sidelines, and is pretty sure he was meant for something better. And now, your host, Lucifer!
Thank you very much. And welcome to Satan Jeopardy, the game show that games you. Hi, I can never hear that enough. I just love me. But let's meet our contestants and know about me for now. Spoke to you on your cell phone a little while ago. Tell us, something bothering you? You seem upset.
Well, I am.
Huh. Well, see your parents again? Are they butting in?
A little.
A little? Oh, jeez. David! How are ya? How's that job coming, David? Any career advancements recently? Any promotion?
No, right?
No? Holy cow. I thought you'd be much further along in your career by now, David. Carol. Just looking over the application there. Did you want to hire a new employee? Sure, that's a good idea, Carol. With all the numbskulls you're already here reporting to you. Well, it's time to play our game. Contestants, audience, are you ready? Well, here's how it works.
Hey, dude, no, say it. We know how it works. Can we get this thing started? How about I'll take it's not fair for 100?
Excellent. Someone else takes credit for work you did. Now, if I believe you must first some work, you deserve the credit. Beth, your pick.
Okay, I'll take. You just don't treat people that way for 200.
Excellent choice. Someone treats you with disrespect. Carol, you go first.
You bet I did. I had a little trouble with a client. I mean, they said I was taking advantage of them. And when I tried to straighten things out, they said I was avoiding responsibility and taking advantage of their goodwill. I mean, goodwill? What goodwill? When I tried to work things out with them, they didn't even give me the time of day.
I'll bet you told them what they could do with their goodwill, huh, Carol?
No, I didn't, but you know what? Good idea. I'm going to make a note to do that first thing tomorrow morning.
Carol, nobody should treat you that way. Your pick.
What? What? Her pick? Dude, I've been standing here for 10 minutes listening to 13 over here whining about, don't take you free young phone. I don't take you free word. Then I got Grandma over here complaining she can't find good employees. Not my problem. Let's get down to what's important. Let's get down to me. Hey, what about me? What are you going to tell me about me?
What about me for 500 it is? Someone has a satisfying job. People to love and people who love them. Someone has a satisfying job, people to love, and people who love them. Beth!
What? What? No, 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 no. No. I'm going to tell you about a satisfying job, not satisfying job. I sit in my cubicle all day long, and the knob on the other side of the wall listens to my work, takes my customers, bonus time phone, ching, takes my bonus. I can't believe it. I'm looking out the window. Every 6 months, the boss pulls up in a new ride. Me, 89 Mustang convertible, bad top, barely runs. I can't afford to fix it. Wife has got no money.
Oh, boo-hoo, boo-hoo, and snibble, snibble, snibble. You sound just like the people I work with every day. I need a longer work break. I deserve a raise. When are we going to get Casimir Pulaski Day off? When am I going to get credit for all the hours I work so someone can actually have a job?
Oh, I can.
Grown-ups are all the same.
Yeah, okay, I remember when I was 13. Whatever. So don't even get started on me, because you can't do your job. Don't get started with me. You need to be installed in that thing. You can't.
I think my work is done.
Do not talk to me like that. You two, yes, man.
So I share that with you just because maybe for Camino walkers, you might have had some flashbacks on some unpleasant thoughts in your past just because there's a lot of space for thinking while you're on the trail. And that was a temptation that I had. And for each of these, in the faith, the hope, and now this one in love, is just the whole message was on forgiveness. And it reminded me of some events in my life that I wasn't very forgiving. And the Camino helped distill and help purify some of that in my walk. Yeah. So Satan is pray without ceasing because Satan is praying without ceasing. So evil thoughts, the opportunity just keeps coming. But I think the antidote for that is to recognize my own limitedness, my own periods of lack of forgiveness. I want to end with a story. In each of my chapters, I punctuate the message with someone's personal faith story. And I take no credit for them. They're outrageously impactful stories. Some could be on 60 Minutes. They're fabulous stories. And I want to share with you a gentleman that shared his story related to a chapter I wrote called A Mountain of Forgiveness. And it was my walking up Alto de Pardon. You would know that pardon is pardon, it means forgiveness, mountain of forgiveness. And I was thinking about the need for forgiveness I've had in my life. But this gentleman shared this story. His name is Mark. And in you'll hear me demonstrate the Camino, my Camino, our Camino. So he describes, he's in his late 40s and he's doing great. I mean, he's a CrossFit guy. He does the training special op forces do, Green Berets do. He was chiseled, fabulous shape, killing it at work, gorgeous wife, fantastic kids. Everything was going his way. He's on a 4-lane road, heading home on an ordinary day, work day, and last minute a car pulls in his lane and hits him head on. They have to send the jaws of life, helicopter, take him out and bring him to the hospital. He had broken bones in his skull, neck, shoulder, an arm broken, hip broken, what's this? Bone call? Yeah, so he had a broken, a knee, an ankle, muscle tissue. He was broken from top to bottom. And he's in the hospital and he has severe amnesia. And his wife starts a care page. Mark was in a terrible accident. And then she claims stories about his life and about him and a scripture that she wanted to claim for him. Others jumped on and they start filling the care pages with similar kinds of stories of the kind of man he was, friend he was, claiming scriptures for him. Months went by and little by little they put Humpty Dumpty back together again, with the exception that his memory was still not very good. More months go by and he's summoned to appear in court. He's walking down the aisle and the judge is perched up and he moves to this table to the right and to the left. For the very first time, he sees the man who caused the accident. His adult children are standing behind him and they're all sobbing uncontrollably. This man's face in his hands, sobbing uncontrollably, could not look over. Mark said, I looked at it and had such pity for what was happening. The judge called him up and asked about the accident, what became of your rehabilitation. He told as much the story as he could. And then the judge asked him, what do you think this man's punishment should be? He said, well, I think he should pay a debt to society. No one should have to go through what I went through. But I hold no ill will, and I forgive him. That, my friends, is a mountain of forgiveness. Afterwards, I asked him, I said, Mark, how is it that you could let that guy go scot-free, that you compensated Willie? That's toxic thinking. See, I was so well trained, I was able to take the hit. I thank God it was me. That could have been a young mom with kids in car seats in the back seat. No, I thank God it was me, because I was strong enough to take the hit. You see, there, my friends, it was a call to me to be more forgiving. And I wouldn't have had that if I hadn't relived that memory while walking Alto de Perdón, that mountain of forgiveness. It gave me an insight into another gift. So here's the point. We heard some and sang some of Altrea to go forward, push it forward. What can we do? What I hope you would do after hearing my talk. And that is this core belief. I passionately believe this. Everyone has a story. My friends, you have a story. Something in your story might have a drama moment in it. It might have a lost and found moment in it. Everyone has a story. And if we were to look deeply into the story, we'd see that God was in that story. And then it might be buried under some rejection, some old hurt, some denial, but he's present. And if we were to share that story, your story will help the next person. Your story is today's parable. Never underestimate your story. What could be holding us back from helping someone who desperately needs the advice contained in your life story? I believe it's this. This is Nelson Mandela's inauguration speech. Follow along as I read it. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful, beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. And it's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. My friends, I implore you, tell your story. The world needs your story. We don't need other bookshelves filled with how to help people, because the help is right inside of you. It's believable, it's relatable, it's relevant. Tell your story. I offer advice on how to do that in a chapter in my book. You can check out my website. There was a bookmarker there with a QR code that will take you right to the site. But I invite you, I implore you, tell your story. God bless you.